This is Coder Radio, episode 10 for August 13th, 2012. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Guten Morgen, Chris.
Good afternoon to you, sir. How you doing on the East Coast?
Yeah, it's all good on the East Coast.
Good. Now, thank you for coming on last this weekend. I just want to say that out of the gate. If people are tuning in Monday morning, go check out this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. Michael joined us and did his picks of the favorite bash scripts that were sent into the show. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was nice to hang out with you and meet Matt and see all the last people.
And take part in the Sunday morning chaos that is the Linux Action Show. That show is a storm once it starts. It's just like a production train. So... now, what are we talking about this week? Because I see the title is Yes, Virginia, Worse is Better.
Well, so we're talking about a few things that you might categorize as worse.
Okay.
So the real inspiration for this episode was, cross-platform development, blah, 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 boring. But then this week, there was kind of a little bit of an S-storm in Reddit/programming and Hacker News.
Oh, really?
Regarding the old debate about whether Unix was the worst solution versus Lisp and Smalltalk-based solutions, and people taking that into more modern times about suboptimal, in quotes, I'm not really saying that, software implementations versus, quote, optimal implementations. There are, by my count, there were 10 different blog posts or serious articles written this week on that one topic.
Wow. So
I figured... obviously, it's something people have in mind. It was in our magical Excel doc.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Google Doc.
Right.
So I bumped it to the front.
So not only that, but we have some good feedback. And then, I think people are really going to be fascinated by some of the topics that we're going to end up landing on. I know we kept holding ourselves off on the pre-show. Before we go, you might be bumping something on your end. I don't know. I'm hearing a little like something through the mic stand, I think.
I think you heard a truck drive by.
Oh, okay.
I felt it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's a little ambiance. I'll just take it as ambiance then.
Well, I live next to a foundry. They actually work on steel and heavy metal next door.
Wow. Then I guess I should be I'm fairly impressed with the results we get then.
Well, they're a small shop, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just hope they don't spin up their operation. Well, should we jump into the feedback then to start things off?
Let's do it.
All right. What's the first one?
So Sigflip has the gall to write in to disagree with me.
No way. That never happens.
And I'm not going to tell anyone what he said because, honestly... No. He disagrees that porting to a completely different stack helps you find bugs in your original code.
Okay.
So I said it doesn't because you're writing on a whole different implementation.
Mm-hmm. He thinks it does, then?
He feels like it does, and he made a good argument.
Okay.
It helps him work out his higher-level logic.
Okay. So
less about syntax error, more about, I could have done this in a more efficient way using... so-and-so pattern.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give him that one. I still think you're probably better off reviewing the original code if you're really concerned about errors or, quote, bugs.
Yeah.
But I can see his point.
It seems like quite the exercise for that, though. Quite the exercise.
Yeah, it's not the most efficient way, but again, to be fair to him, it was because we were talking about if you were already doing it, would it be a side effect?
Oh, okay, totally. I could see that.
I mean, certainly if your goal is to fix bugs in your current code, you wouldn't go, write a whole new platform app. If you were fixing an Android app, you wouldn't just go write an iOS app to do that. That would be insane.
Crazy. That'd be crazy. But, yeah, exactly. If you're
so he makes a good point.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
So I got a number of emails recommending source control books.
Oh, really?
Because the same people who wrote in, who really wanted the boot camp episode, really want people to read a few books.
Okay.
So those books are ProGit, which was the most popular one.
Oh, really? Okay. And all available online?
ProGit's actually free online, or you could get it on Amazon via the Jupiter Broadcasting affiliate link.
Of course. Very
Of course.
cool. Okay.
The other one is Source Control by Example, which I haven't read and can't really speak to. But both of those are recommended several times.
Source Control by Example, also available as a PDF download or an EPUB.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can definitely recommend ProGit. I've read it and I have it. It's a good read through if you just need to get up and running, but it goes into some deep topics just as a reference book.
Okay.
So again, I guess a lot of you are breaking repos or something.
Links to that in the show notes for all you. If you've just, we won't pass any judgment. We don't have any kind of tracking. Just go click the links and study up. We won't assume you're somebody who's broken a repo.
Yeah, I can't stress how passionate these people are.
Wow. It's funny. I wonder. I should ask. That'd be a great topic for TechSnap too. Just only for the sysadmin. Experienced sysadmins. Send us in the top things you wish junior sysadmins knew. I got to remember to. We'll do that on TechSnap. That sounds fun.
Yeah, and the funny part is, I'm getting more stuff. A lot of emails starting. Oh, I heard the episode, but you forgot this, this, and this. Should do another one.
Oh wow. Well, maybe in the future. Just
maybe in a the distant future.
Yeah.
So remember Relon from last week, our budding Ruby programmer?
Yeah.
He wrote in to clarify what exactly he's doing.
Okay.
So he's doing a lot of server side and some scripting.
Okay.
And he wanted to know if there were any other books I recommend.
Okay.
So I still recommend Eloquent Ruby. And there is another book on my shelf right behind me that I can't look at called Pragmatic Ruby Scripting. It's Chris.
Pragmatic. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, Everyday Scripting with Ruby. That's the name of the book.
Ah, there you go. I was just checking to see if, it's we have that affiliate deal with Code School, and they have a Try Ruby course, and they also have, now he said he wanted to avoid Rails, but they have a bunch of courses on Rails, including some beginner stuff, Rails best practices. Now that stuff probably wouldn't apply to him. Boy, they have a lot of Rails stuff, but they do just have some general Ruby stuff too. And one of them's free.
Yeah, one of them's free, and the nice thing, Ruby is a pretty simple language, especially if you're scripting in it. If you're actually just writing, scripts to get things done, you'll be fine.
Ooh, you get just course prizes. Yeah, I mean, this might be one way to just kind of check it out, and he could use the affiliate link at the bottom of Jupiter Broadcasting before he goes there.
I think he should.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some recommendations in the chat as well. Programming in the Unix environment.
Okay.
Fair enough. Classically trained.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, there's tons of good resources. I still think my original recommendation, though, of the quote pickaxe book is the way to go.
Okay.
Because it's just a language reference. Okay. He also wants to put in a vote for a testing episode. So if you remember, Chris, we had some discussion last week about test-driven development.
Yeah.
We actually got a lot of feedback about that.
Okay. So what's kind of the consensus?
Well, there are another passionate group. Interestingly enough, if we were to draw a Venn diagram of the people who want to turn the show into Stop Breaking the Repo 101, and the people who want to talk about testing, there's a very big overlap.
Surprise.
Interesting.
Yeah. Color me shocked.
Yeah, it's surprising for sure.
Well, I guess we could always, take some of that and sprinkle it throughout different episodes and stuff like that too.
Definitely.
Yeah, sort of a dusting here and there.
Dusting of testing.
I like that. Okay, so that's a good one. Now, what else we got?
Now, I got an email from a pretty lengthy email, so I'm boiling it down here, from Bill.
Okay.
He's been teaching himself coding, but he's taking a different track than me and most of the people who listen to the show. He doesn't want to program apps or desktop applications or anything like that. He wants to be a Linux kernel programmer or a systems programmer.
Wow. Remember how I used the Linux kernel as an example and you're like, that is so extreme, Chris?
Yeah, I was like, no. So that's a special group of people.
Yeah.
But he has a couple questions. A, is that a reasonable goal? For sure, go learn C. You're really at the lowest level possible there, so Godspeed.
Yeah.
Also, he asked, will he make money in that? Yes. Those type of developers make a lot of money.
Did you see, speaking of Linux kernel and writing in C, did you see that we had that story in last, the great quotes from Linus Torvalds, and one of them was about how he hates C++ or something like that? Yeah. Linus slams C++ because he says he called it a horrible language.
He has some good points. Objective-C is better. What? Sorry.
What? Wow. Jeez. Fist fight now. You're gonna get a punch in the email.
I know, I'm going to get so much hate. Objective-C should have won. C++ is crap. Moving on.
Okay. Just drop that bomb and move on.
There are reasons for that,
Yeah.
and I would be happy to debate that any day.
If people have a thought on the topic, email us, coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. We love getting your emails on this show. So you can also use the contact form. There's a little contact link at the top of jupiterbroadcasting.com.
Just one thing I would recommend to Bill, don't try and submit a patch to the Linux kernel. Don't think they're going to take it well. One good project is perhaps working on your own fork of something.
Yeah, and then you got to establish a rep in that community. So start working on something and then build a reputation. They're not going to let just anybody submit something.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to break into, but if you can get established, that's a very lucrative field.
Just be prepared to invest the time. But it'd be very rewarding if you do.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So, Chris, why don't you take this next one?
Okay. Are we on James here?
Mr. James, yes.
James is working as a C# developer working in C# as an ASP.NET developer, but he's also learning Python, and he has to make a decision regarding design patterns. What are design patterns?
Design patterns are established ways of doing things. They're definitely helpful. The problem is, and I think what he's getting at is that certain people get very religious about them. So there are people who basically memorize design patterns and refuse to do anything outside of them.
Oh, okay, I see.
And kind of impose that.
So if you came across something like that, you kind of, and especially if you're beginning in something, you might start to think that's just the way it has to be done. Am I tracking? You think maybe he's getting a little too focused on that aspect?
Well, I mean, I don't know him.
Oh, okay.
So there's definitely, people are mentioning the Gang of Four book in the chat. Yes, you definitely should learn design patterns, but you shouldn't be dogmatic about it.
Okay. You should be pragmatic.
Right. You should use them when they're appropriate, but not try and... So the issue is a design pattern will solve a certain problem. Problem is, if the pattern you're trying to apply isn't tailored to the problem you're trying to solve, you end up with a crap implementation.
Oh, sure.
So that's really what you have to shy away from. His other point, which I kind of truncated in the summary here, is that he works on C#, is learning Python, and he kind of doesn't know which way to go.
Yeah.
But whatever you enjoy working with best. I mean, it's not...
But, with some perspective, you're looking at it, you don't have one that you'd say, if I can only pick one path myself, I would go this route?
It wouldn't be fair, though. So, I would probably go with C# only because I like that style of language. I like languages that are more closely related to C.
Okay.
And what I know better, I mean, if you listen to the show, you've known my dalliances into Python. I've done it. I don't really like it. Doesn't mean it's a bad language. In fact, it's a great language. It's just not my taste. And also, one thing I would tell you, James, if you've gotten used to Visual Studio and all that nice code generation, you probably should learn Python or something else, just so you know how that magic happens. Right? You need to... And people are talking in the chat about just setting a pull request to Linux kernel. You can't do that.
No.
He doesn't allow it. You literally have to become part of the community. So the idea that Bill could just want to GitHub and issue a pull request is silly. That's just not possible. I mean, he could issue the request. It would just be ignored.
Right.
So I guess it is possible, but it won't work. I mean, I don't know, Chris. I don't want to get into a religious war here. I say work with whatever you want, and more importantly, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Is Python a more appropriate tool, or is C#?
That would be the approach I would take. It would be I would look at it from a tools perspective, because you're not marrying it. You're going to learn something, and you're going to get the job done. And in the future, you might then be able to solve your next problem even easier using the same language. Or at that point, you might learn something else because it's a better tool for that job, and you worry about it then.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you don't want to be, and I think we talked about this, what was it, episode 1 or 2, is a one-trick pony.
Exactly.
To just know C# would be bad.
But, and I think that's what he's maybe somewhat worried about. I mean, maybe that's why he's doing both C# and Python. But I would say, you're just focusing for a while. You're not committing for the rest of your life. You just focus and commit for the next 2 years, the next 6 months, that kind of thing. And then when you feel like you've reached a point where you're no longer satisfying that need to learn, like it's become easy enough for you, then that's when you just transition to the next thing.
Right. I mean, and just to be clear, James works full-time as a C# developer, he says.
Oh, there you go.
So one assumed he's already proficient enough.
Maybe that's probably why he's moved to Python.
Right, he's learning Python on the side.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is great. Well, you should keep doing that. I mean, don't take a risk in your job and try and push your employer to move, because that won't go well. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not willing to make a value judgment here because I don't think it's appropriate.
There you go. That kind of is an answer in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, so sorry.
No, it's good. Good luck, James. Let us know how it turns out.
Enjoy. I mean, Objective-C would be a better solution.
So we have a line in here for GitHub clarification.
Yes, so a number of people thought I wasn't aware of how GitHub works, even though I wrote a tool for GitHub.
I don't mean to laugh, but your tone is pretty funny.
Oh, the emails were a little silly. I am aware that there is a free plan for GitHub. I am also aware of how code snippets work on GitHub. I wrote an app that publishes code snippets to GitHub via GitHub using GitHub's API.
Well, they probably just wanted to make sure.
I guess. But I just want to be totally clear because I assume I confuse some people. GitHub is free unless you're hosting a closed source project. So if you want private repos, you have to pay. Additionally, there are educational discounts that I am not aware of.
Okay.
I don't know what the deal is, but apparently if you have like a .edu address, they'll give you some kind of perk. Awesome.
Natch in the chat room says, whenever I code, I feel like there is a thin sheet of plastic over the code, like the one you use for food.
You're a strange dude, bro.
That's a good one. All right. Now, I knew as soon as I said it, I was gonna take a beating for this one.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go get some coffee, and you enjoy.
Okay, so a lot of people wrote in and said that I was crazy about Qt, and that I probably use, and I knew I was going to get this one, I probably use many daily applications I don't even realize are based on Qt. And in fact, Qt is a wonderful, fantastic thing that I shouldn't have spoken badly about. And I knew when I was saying that I was going to get some hate. And I guess what it is that it's sort of like a bunch of you know how a bunch of fart apps can spoil an app store in a way? Like people start taking it less seriously if it's just filled with fart apps. It's kind of like when you see a bunch of really cheaply done Qt apps.
Stop while you're ahead.
You're right.
You're going down that route. That was your apology. So it's not the platform. It's the fart apps, guys.
No,
it's
what I'm saying is that I let a few bad examples spoil my impression.
Never go to a casino. You just rolled it. All right. What Chris is trying to say that he respects the developers that work on Qt and with Qt.
Oh, I do. I do.
There we go. I could be your lawyer. So don't worry. I was just as bad. I apparently misspoke and compared Qt to XFCE.
Oh, okay.
Which doesn't make sense.
Right.
And I was quickly corrected, and I am very, very sorry.
Right. We should have compared it to GTK, right? So it's more of a... And except for Qt is even more than that. Qt really is going to be...
Qt is for all intents and purposes, Qt is a platform you can develop on.
Yeah, exactly. And it's becoming even more so.
Yeah, we could get hyper-technical as a framework, as a library, whatever. It's a platform.
And if you don't consider it one right now, you will in the next year.
Yeah, and that's one of the big news stories. And we might as well just segue right into it. So Digia bought Qt.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I think that's great. More C++ development.
Well, Digia is sort of like the ideal candidate because they already were responsible for the commercial licensing aspects of Qt.
It made sense. I mean, from a business perspective, who else was going to take it?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering.
It was going to die with Nokia.
And Nokia just wasn't focused on it. It wasn't a priority.
Well, of course not.
And Digia can make it a priority.
Right. I mean, one thing I'm concerned with is kind of... I hope it doesn't go the way of Mono, where the desktop support starts to slip in favor of mobile.
Hmm. Yeah, that could happen. Yeah, they did talk a lot about mobile.
They talked an awful lot about mobile, and it sounded just like the Mono announcement when they switched to Zemirian.
But see, that's different. See, that I think is different because that was Miguel Idicaza's sort of personal vision for the direction of the platform. And it's also sort of the bet Gnome made, and you can kind of see where that's working out right now. And it's the bet Microsoft's making. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I think we're starting to see some examples where it hasn't quite panned out yet for people. So people might not be so fast to jump on that bandwagon now. I don't know. What do you think?
Mono? You're asking me what I think of Mono?
No. Do you think people maybe might be a little more gun-shy now of jumping on the betting the farm on mobile?
I don't think you should bet the farm on anything. What do you mean? So, yeah, no. I mean, if QT is betting it all on, or Digia is betting it all on mobile, that's a big risk. Because there'd essentially be a middleware player in the mobile space. Because I don't know how else they would manage it, especially on iOS.
I think what they're aiming for is being the platform that you could write for mobile and the desktop.
Right.
I mean, look at some of the look at Skype, right? Skype's a Qt app.
Well, don't say that.
But I mean, the advantage there is if Skype was okay, pretend like it's not Skype. Pretend like it's a better program. But if they probably are not. But an application like them could target Windows, Mac, and Linux, and mobile.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I just started a Qt project actually after that show because we needed something cross-platform, and I took a little risk because the accepted choice would have been Java. I really don't like having to optimize code too much, and I feel like the inherent slowness in Java just wouldn't do the job. So I took a look at Qt. I did some samples. One thing they have really nice, you take your code from Mac to Windows to Linux, it looks pretty native if you do it right.
Oh, okay. Good.
You don't get access to a lot of the native stuff, but if you're just looking for the veneer of nativeness, you get it.
Veneer by native, of nativeness.
By native, I know it compiles down to machine code. I mean, using Aqua on Mac versus always using, looking like it's using Aqua, I should say.
Is it like their own implementation? Like, did they come up with all of the graphics and like animated bars and buttons, or are they actually using the toolkit from OS X?
That I don't know. If somebody in the chat knows more about it, can tell me. I don't know how they do it. I don't think it ties into Cocoa or anything like that. I'm pretty sure it just, I've been reading some books on it this week. I'm pretty sure it's just built into their classes like Qt button. And it just kind of renders the right way according to your system.
Okay.
I don't think... So you're asking if it's compiling and like hooking into Cocoa.
Well, I'm just like... so, for example, when you have Lion or Snow Leopard,
sure,
you have rounded buttons. When you upgrade to Lion, they became square buttons. Every application that uses the native OS X toolkit now has square buttons. Every app that implemented their own OS X-like look still has rounded buttons, and now they look ridiculous.
Right, so it doesn't do that. It adopts whatever the native layout is.
Dude, that's awesome. I mean, I know that sounds like such a stupid thing, but to me, it always looks like it's lacking fit and finish if it doesn't do those kinds of things, and that's for any desktop UI. Yeah,
I mean, it looks very good. And again, I'm not okay. So Grey Wolf's telling me in the chat it is in fact just a wrapper over Cocoa and a wrapper over MS GUI. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay,
I stand corrected.
Okay.
I'm just using this tool out of a pragmatic need for something like this. So I don't develop Qt itself. I don't know how it works under the covers. I'm sure in the coming months I will.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to have, because I'm the one who kind of pushed this through, so I get to be the support guy.
Yeah. You're going to learn it.
Oh, I'm busily reading. I just finished like the Foundations of Qt book, and now I'm going on to Intermediate Qt.
Well, this is interesting then. So yeah, this is great. Now, how does this influence your decision for your own personal app, aka CodeJournal for Linux?
Well, Qt is probably the way it's going to go. There is still a temptation to go with Java.
Really?
Okay. Only because GitHub open sourced a beautiful API library in Java under the MIT license.
It's beautiful,
But
I tell you.
I think it's going to have to go with Qt, only because it seems like it's more my style. Also, this is going to sound silly, but their little GUI creator, the fact that I can drop a square and have it have like an absolute position rather than that weird swing editor stuff in Eclipse,
Yeah,
totally worth it.
yeah. We've talked a little bit about, I think something that maybe we've talked about, one of the marketing advantages of going GTK and those kinds of things might be a more native looking app on the Ubuntu Unity desktop, but it sounds like you could accomplish still a very, natural looking application using Qt.
Yeah, so there's limitations, right? You're not going to be able to hook in to iCloud on Mac or that little notification bar on Ubuntu, which I've given up on anyway. But in terms of look and feel, you're getting, I'd say, 90% of what you would get from writing in the quote native stack.
Yeah. So it would be, the problem you're facing is it would be so much freaking work to do those just extra little tiny things. Like I'm thinking like dashboard integration where, you could have, I have this really cool app called Everpad that ties in with Evernote, and it gives me a lens in Unity where all of my notes can be searched right there. I just hit the super key and I just start typing, and I'm bringing up. I can search all of my Evernote database, then bring up one particular thing in Everpad, and that kind of integration is really nice. And now they have different lenses for different programs that I'm buying through the Software Center, and I'm like, I'm really liking this kind of stuff. But I understand that. I mean, that would mean that would just mean so much overhead, right? Just to accomplish that level of integration.
Yeah, I mean, that specific example, I can't give an authoritative answer, but generally speaking, tying into small UX functionality on a specific platform requires specific code.
Which may just not be worth it.
Right, and I think we'll jump into that in a little bit, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I understand then. All right. Interesting enough. I'm curious to see where you go, and I'm excited.
All right, so the next Internet Rage article. Steve Yegges, I may have pronounced that wrong, of Google, decided to categorize software developer into liberal/conservative camps, not like American politics, liberal conservative. Just risky versus risk averse.
Okay.
I don't have a lot to say about this. It kind of started a storm on Reddit. It's interesting to think where you fall in, and I have to say, doing his little test, I pretty much am where I thought I was.
Where's that?
I'm fairly liberal. I think I came up to like moderate liberal.
Okay.
And that actually the biggest marker of liberalness I had was Ruby, which is quote a naive language. Which
that's what his test said.
That's what him and a lot of the people commenting on it say.
Oh, okay, okay.
If you want some joy, read the comments.
Okay.
Just a little fun thing. I'm not going to go into it because honestly, it doesn't really provide anything of value to getting things done. But I figured I'd share it. All right, this next thing people emailed me about and Twittered me and Google Plus'd me. So I have to talk about it. TextMate 2 is open source, kind of, not really. No, it's not.
Whoa, oh, it's not.
It's open source. It's GPL v3. So what does that mean? Anybody who changes it has to give it back to him. Great. Did anybody bother to read the license for like doing a plugin or any of the additional, I forgot the term slipping from me, but basically any of the quote add-in modules other than the plugins you own have to be public domain. I'm sorry, public domain, right? So we're there, which means he can take it and make it proprietary. The reason for this is quote, oh, he has a friend using some of that system and it can't be GPL.
Okay, interesting.
So,
but if you took
it
and integrated, it would have to become GPL3.
Right, and he says he's, quote, protecting a friend. Whatever. What it sounds like to me is he's protecting himself. TextMate 2 is 6 years late, people. And this may be a sign of my age, because this guy is a Mac dev legend, and I'm too young to honestly give a rat's ass. Like, he doesn't exist in my world. If you look at just the facts, Sublime Text, Chocolat, and a number of other TextMate replacements are beating the crap out of him. And what's annoying me is that this guy got praised for his commitment to open source. When if you look at what he did, he's taking all the advantages of open source and getting rid of the biggest disadvantage of the GPL.
It's pretty convenient.
And he was they lauded him as a hero on Ars Technica. I mean, to me, it would be more honest if he said, I'm BSD licensing it because I'm going to use your changes and make a proprietary product. And I'm not saying he's doing that. I'm just saying, how can you accept this type of license?
So your main concern, though, is that if somebody contributes a great plugin, that he might take it and then...
Oh, no, it's not a concern. I'm just yelling at people. I'm yelling at them because there's this weird knee-jerk reaction to praise anyone who open sources anything without reading the fine print.
That is true. You know, we've had some recent things in our community that I've witnessed that I've been surprised that it's sort of like this... well, you know, it's actually something, Michael, that I berated Google about a few years, 2 years or a year ago, and got a lot of heat from it, is Google will sometimes beat the open source drum as really just a way to get people excited not to really think critically about things. And I'm a very, very, very big open source advocate, but nothing makes me more angry than when I see people take advantage of open source goodwill.
So what's really interesting to me is this announcement comes after a lot of the big Mac dev people, you know, Marco Arment, those type of guys, had pretty much all but on podcasts, on blogs, announced the death of TextMate and that they were moving on.
Yeah.
A week later, he's open sourcing it. I mean, if it was purely open source, even if it was BSD or Apache license, I would be cool with that. This seems dishonest. This seems like he knew saying GPL would get him headlines. He takes little risk because by his own admission during the alpha, there are tons of problems.
So he says, I'm also a pragmatist, and I realize that parts of TextMate's code base is useful for other non-free applications, so I may later move to a less restrictive license, as is currently the case with bundles. So he's even saying he might move all of TextMate to a different license.
Yeah, and let me translate that into some of our junior devs. You're going to fix my crap, and then I'm going to take the value you created and sell it.
It does kind of sound like
that. Nothing.
It kind of sounds like he's 6 years late on his next version. I kind of see what you're saying, actually. He's because I'm familiar with this application, and he is way late. He's missed every major revision of the OS and missed every new feature the OS has brought for the last 6 years, while every other text editor on the planet has done.
And he's getting trounced.
Yeah.
It's so important to know how well Sublime Text is doing. And I know this isn't a Mac audience, but there's another competitor called Chocolat, who's Mac specific, that is being lauded as the new TextMate. It would be different if TextMate 2 were a leading application on the Mac and that he was open sourcing it as a stand. This is a desperation move. Maybe, but it's not even like Netscape open sourcing Netscape. It's not, we can't beat free, we'll go open source, but we'll go pure open source. This is not pure. This is, I mean, to me, this is the worst kind of open source. This is, he knew it would grab headlines. He has a name he can trade on, and he's trading on it, which is, hey, it's fine. I'm just saying, before you get all excited about, you know, committing code to this, helping import it to Linux or whatever, go look at something else.
You did use an accurate description, though, when you said he's trading on his name. His future actions, I mean, he may, you know, if he does the right thing, then his name will be even more valuable. And if he does the wrong thing, he's going to pay for it.
What right thing? He already did the wrong thing.
Well, if he takes it again and close sources it and just absorbs the improvements.
So he can't do that. It's cheap. It's clever, right? He can't completely close source it now.
True. Right.
What he did was he kept the most important part, the part that makes it incredibly powerful, closed source. And he's requiring anything you do that touches that to be a license that he can then make proprietary later.
Right. Okay. And
but this is worse. This is worse than doing open core, because this is, you know, honestly, I read the Ars Technica article. I read all the Mac developers lauding him. If I were him, I would have been embarrassed. I would have been commenting on these posts trying to tell people, actually, it's not really completely open source. You know, I'm sorry you misunderstood.
Right.
Although really, I wouldn't have done this. I would have just been honest and said, I'm making it Apache. And that's it.
Yeah, it is kind of shady that he. Yeah, I see what you're saying. You kind of get. It's nuanced, but I see what you're saying.
he's using a loophole to say, well, this is technically a different thing, so it's not affected by the GPL.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
And it's a nuance that I think most of the internet missed, and it's a pretty key one. It's pretty key.
So the module that is not GPL is the most important thing. It's the thing that made TextMate what it was.
Yeah, and actually people still use it even though it hasn't been updated for years.
And people like Sublime Text and Chocolat and all these other competitors have invested serious R&D into this, into getting that kind of bundle compatibility. So I don't know. I mean, maybe this is too much rage, but when I read all those articles and heard people talking about how he's a hero for open source, this is not, Zeus coming from Mount Olympus or Prometheus bringing fire to the mere mortals. This is someone who knows he's 6 years too late, whose lunch is being eaten, but knows he has a certain amount of cachet with particularly the older people in the Mac community that are in positions to help him.
Right.
And you know what? I can't say if I was in his position, I wouldn't try and do that. I'm just saying I wouldn't do this with the source license.
It's a good catch, actually. I completely missed it. I didn't follow too closely.
And please send me your hate mail, because I am willing to debate this to death.
I could tell.
This is not one I'm going to equivocate
on. All right. Well, do you mind if I do a quick plug before we go to the next topic?
This is not for TextMate.
No, it's not for TextMate. It's for Sublime. No, I'm kidding. That would be really funny if they should buy ads on here, because it is a pay app, and you and I are both. You know what? We will give them an honorary plug, even though they don't pay us. If you guys haven't checked out Sublime Text, and make sure it's one of the newer versions, because it is under, unlike TextMate, it is under rapid development, and Sublime Text is available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. It is my editor of choice. So just there they go, sublimetext.com. Go check it out. But actually, what I wanted to give a plug for was our affiliate plugins for your web browser. If you go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and you scroll down to the very bottom of the website, we have extensions down there for Chrome and for Firefox. And I love this Chrome one that we have, because it's got this cool Jupiter Broadcasting TV logo on there. Anyways, if you add these extensions to your browser, either for the Fox or for the Chrome, you will then automatically tag your shopping session when you're shopping at Amazon. Now, I know a lot of you know that, but did you also know it does it for Newegg? It'll do it for... actually, it'll even do it for some affiliates we don't have on the bottom of the website that are just still really great ones. And you can always tell, because it usually puts a little something in your URL. But if you ever want to make sure, just email the chief of all things affiliate, Angela at jupiterbroadcasting.com, and tell her what you bought, and she can look it up in the reports. We don't have any names or any info like that, but we can always try to find out what was sold if you're ever curious if it's working or not. But anyways, go check out those links at the bottom of our website. You add those to your browser, and then you can give us a little something when you get yourself a little something. All right, Mr. Dominic.
So I did some deep breathing.
I'm
meditating.
Good. I was trying to give you some time, because I know this next thing might make you a little bit of a sad panda.
Yeah, so I was an angry panda. By the way, pandas are vicious. You should know that.
Apparently, they're somewhat bipolar.
And according to Blizzard Entertainment, magical.
Yeah, definitely according to Blizzard.
So I've been kind of banging on this drum of, you do an app, you should tie into the native functionality of the platform, blah, blah, blah. Every platform gets its own app. I can see why people don't do that. So here's what happened. I don't check sales figures for CodeJournal, but for once a week.
Okay. Just so that way you don't obsess.
Because I'm OCD about numbers, and I calculate everything out.
Yeah.
I'm a little nuts in that regard, according to data. So I got the data last night, and I analyzed it this morning for the last week. A few surprising things. People who use it seem to really like it. I got a lot of emails.
Oh, good.
Not that many people use it.
Oh.
More importantly, the people who use it, in all my conversations with them, said they don't care about the native functionality. They would rather something that you bought one possibly more expensive license and got it cross-platform.
That makes a lot of sense for a tool. That really does, for a utility-type application.
So, and it's really interesting. So a lot of what I got was, wow, this is really nice looking, great UX. But couldn't you have just written it in Java and we could run it on Windows too? So that's kind of the opposite philosophy, right? That's
You have a more tolerable audience with that type of application. Somebody who values the practical feature over the shiny feature.
And I think part of it is I spend a lot of time in the mobile space with a lot of designers and startups. So maybe my internal bar for UX is higher than it probably is for this app's audience.
I don't know though. I still maintain there's a lot of apps that will do very well if they look good, and I think it's kind of an important aspect still.
Right, and I'm not saying CodeJournal is the best looking app around. I think it's pretty good, and it looks very native because it is native. And I took a lot of pain to follow Apple's design docs, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. The feedback is very strange though. First thing, the most demanded version is Windows, not Linux.
That doesn't surprise me, even though the Linux Action Show has more Windows downloads most weeks, and not always, but most weeks we have more Windows downloads. So it seems to be that when it comes down to actually getting work done, maybe it's people at work. Actually, you know what, Michael? I think that's a big part of it.
It probably is.
A lot of people at work want to use this stuff, and they use Windows at work.
So it's and a few other interesting things I've come to find. So the other feedback, and I talked about this last week, and I've gotten this in spades now.
Okay.
Why isn't this on the App Store? I will not buy this, not on the App Store.
Wow.
Quote, because your website could disappear tomorrow. Okay. So, right when I started this, I said it was an experiment. And I think it would be dishonest at this point to draw any conclusion other than, like it or not, the app stores are the future. And I say that with some pain in my voice because it's certainly not the result I wanted.
And especially for the Mac platform.
Yeah, but I've gotten so much feedback.
I wonder if this will also become the tune for the Windows platform when Windows 8 ships.
That's the other thing. So then you're stuck. I mean, again, I'm a data-driven guy. I have to go by the numbers and go by the feedback and the quantity of feedback. I mean, it seems like this fight's over.
Wow. Yes, it's interesting too because of the developers I know. All of them have something in an app store that makes more money than their website direct sales.
Yeah. And I mean, the people who emailed me are being a little irrational. The fact that it's on an app store doesn't mean I can't pull it down. It doesn't mean, I don't pay my $99 like Brian Lunduke forgot that Apple.
Right. Well, Brian Lunduke's a great example, though. I mean, look at out of all of the revenue he generated, the number one source of income by like a 70% margin was the app store sales.
Right. But being pragmatic, I have to play the numbers. So the next question is, what does this mean for non-App Store users? Honestly, nothing. You guys paid less because I'm marking it up on the App Store.
You still distribute it via the website to them?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
So two things. The sale ends on Friday. So if you are even considering it, you should get it now.
At codejournalapp.com.
Yeah, for $2.99. After Friday, the price is going up. Then the App Store version is going to be even more expensive than that price. Because I'm a spiteful jerk.
Are you going to add anything to it too, just to?
No, I'm marking it up because I can't. So I
don't. 30% cut, right? I mean, Apple takes a cut.
There's a different reason, but.
Oh, okay.
So when you buy it currently, I get your email address. Now I have not emailed anybody that hasn't emailed me, other than with like an update if they were running Lion.
Mm-hmm.
But that data is still valuable. I don't sell it. I don't do anything with it. But the direct relationship is valuable for the reasons we talked about, I think, a few shows back.
Yep.
You're more likely to email me directly if we have that kind of relationship rather than
a comment in the App Store.
Right. A nasty 1-star review. And my hope is that, nasty commenter 822 will be more civil and more reasonable and actually give me a helpful bug report via email rather than spewing his crap on the App Store.
This is the exact reason I'm very close to turning off comments on JupiterBroadcasting.com, because if people email me, it's much more rational, it's much more thought out, and it's usually more intelligent than the quick, I'm a little drunk, I'm just going to post some mean comment.
Well, I mean, I no longer read YouTube comments for this show, but I will read the ones on the website occasionally.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like if you really have a problem, people sit on the phone for a half hour with a problem with software from Microsoft or from Apple. Hell, I've sat on the phone with Apple for 2 hours. You can't send me a 5-minute email? Nah,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Especially if you're... It would be
it's
one
tough,
thing
though, because you see, the thing is it also, like, okay, the YouTube comments, perfect example. The flip side is they're the most active commenters. They'll be the first to comment. You'll have the quickest discussion there, and it's the same for the App Store. The level of the barrier to entry to make a comment is lower, so you get a greater amount of feedback. So in some respects, that's valuable too, because maybe some of it's junk, some of it's not, all of it is, some of it's still good.
It's a bad comparison for two reasons. YouTube will not bury your video if you have downvotes.
I think they do in the search.
One downvote on YouTube is less impact than one 1-star review on an app.
And it's a different game when you're talking revenue.
Additionally, if someone's nasty on YouTube and the community decides they were overly nasty, they can actually suppress that comment.
Right.
It's very hard to do currently on the Mac App Store, even if the person's totally factually wrong.
This is the same problem, by the way, for the Ubuntu Software Center, too, I've been noticing.
Right. And, we've had the argument about how I feel about public commenting and things like that. I'm not willing to risk a business to the general public like that. But I'm going to have to, right? So the Code Journal business is going to have to be put on the App Store at a higher price to make up for that loss.
But then you run the risk of, I paid $8.99 or whatever for this,
It's going to be like $200 on the App Store just because you people piss me off. No, I'm kidding.
That would be so awesome.
No, it's going to be slightly more expensive. And you know what? Some of them are very rational about why they prefer the App Stores. Others, I don't think, understand how the App Store works. A lot of people seem to think that Apple or Ubuntu or Microsoft, coming soon, actually have a cozy relationship with me and help me do my updates to make sure they're A-okay. That's not how it works, guys. Apple rejects your app because they don't like the way you did your font.
Right.
Apps crash in the App Store.
Yeah.
They don't QA. They do design QA. Or not even QA. They do a design sweep. That's basically it in a malware scan. So in my experience, the only rejections I've seen have always been, this font isn't that good.
Yeah, if that wasn't the case, you wouldn't see all the reviews that say, 1-star crashes on launch.
Yeah, so the idea that you're being protected is honestly ignorant. But
yeah, it really, we will, and we've seen malware in the mobile app stores. We will eventually see a malware spread through one of these desktop app stores. It will happen.
And fun fact, because they're talking about refunds, they're talking about something else in the chat, but I am far more likely to give you a refund if you don't like the app than Apple is.
There you go. Yeah, that's up to them, isn't it?
It's up to them, and then you can contest it. It's a little messy. But the developer can't contest it, but if there's too many of them, it becomes a problem, and there's some kind of process.
So we're transitioning from the freedom of the web, where you put up your website and everybody buys from there, to the sort of more back to the storefront again. But at the same time, your audience density is much higher.
Yeah, so it's not all bad, right? I am incredibly confident that I will make more money on the Mac App Store than direct sales. Unfortunately, the Mac App Store people are going to wait about 20 days for each update, at least, from when I submit the update.
Just being totally devil's advocate here, as an App Store user for all my video and audio production machines, which, here, I'll just bring it up on this machine I'm sitting at right now. Does it give me a total number of... I don't know if it does, but anyways... it's a very long list of applications that probably 100, 150 apps. And I have made the choice to maybe not install all of them, but most of them get installed on every new production machine that has to edit video and audio and encode. And I honestly would be willing to wait 6 months for an update if it meant getting it through the App Store, because I don't actually like updating my production tools very often. I would prefer to wait, and the whole flexibility of of just very easy deployment, and because when I update, I want to update all of my tools at once, because that way all of the codecs are the same across all applications and everything like that. I like the very one-shot controlled approach I have through an app store. It's like, okay, all of these applications that are all dependent on each other, now all their updates are ready at once, now they all get updated. And I just boom, 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 boom. I do that batch of 5 and I'm done. And it's very nice from that respect. And I kind of like that as an end user.
And that's fine that you like that. I mean, I have no issue with the users who choose the App Store because, they understand how it works and they want that experience. The issue I have is with the naive idea that there's some magical big brother sitting in Cupertino protecting you from unstable apps. It's simply not true.
Right. Well, and the irony is the applications I'm installing most of them don't follow Apple's sandboxing rules.
Lucky.
So, they are not as restricted as in some of the independent developers are.
Right. And to play devil's advocate with you, it's likely that Apple will have to lift some of those rules or add more, quote, entitlements for sandboxing.
I would think so.
Because it's getting absurd. There's a lot of bucking in the community, the Mac developer community. There's a lot of people who started off rational, and I think even I'm falling into this, are just becoming more and more nasty about it, more and more bitter.
The problem is, it's twofold. Number one is Microsoft is really looking to Apple these days for these types of things. So they're also implementing a lot of restrictions on their side. The second problem you have with that is Apple doesn't make their money on the Mac, right? 70%, isn't it? 70% of Apple's revenue comes from their mobile platform, and
but that's a bad argument.
Well, but why is it? Because they're a very focused company. They're a very focused company.
The Mac business for any other company would be wildly successful.
I realize the Mac business is something like a $22 billion business a year on its own. But that aside, the iPhone, the iPad business, just the iPad and iPhone business was an $86 billion business in the last since 2000 whatever that quote, 2010 or whatever it was,
9 or something.
Yeah, with $86 billion is, I mean, they focus, and they just don't give a crap about the Mac enough. And the issue is if other people like Canonical and Microsoft are looking to them and saying, "We'll kind of do it like that," that's a bad precedent, I think.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this is the way it's going, and I think we're getting off the point. The point is, I did the experiment. My opinion is that it failed.
Yeah, and the App Store
didn't fail. I mean, any experiment that yields a result is a success. It yielded a result that's very quantifiable.
But you feel like there's a wall there. There's just an adoption wall.
I feel like Mac users have been trained at this point. The App Store is the way you purchase your apps.
Yeah.
And there is a large percentage of them who really would prefer to purchase it that way. And I'm not angry with them. I wish they would really take some time to learn about it and to see what they're giving up. But that's not realistic. I mean,
no, you can't really expect that from, I guess, most end users. And I guess what I feel like the undertone of the conversation is it's sort of the trend that we're going to see on the other platforms.
Yeah, I think it'll happen to Microsoft first.
Yeah.
Canonical is going to be, Canonical is one of the most interesting companies to me right now.
If they don't go some of this route, they're going to be in some of the best positions. Really, they could be facing sort of the grass is greener type scenario very soon, where they're the green grass and people jump to them if they don't implement some of these restrictions and they don't lock things down and they embrace the standard desktop models.
Maybe.
You don't think so?
I mean, we could speculate all day. I mean, and it's very off topic, but one thing I would say is no one looks at the guy, who just bought a mansion and says, "Let me do what he's not doing." Right? I mean, Canonical's a business. Mark Shuttleworth is a pretty direct guy when it comes to what he wants for Ubuntu in terms of success. And maybe I'm just, overly cynical on it. Remember, I jumped from Ubuntu 9.10 to 12.04. I thought I landed on a foreign planet.
Yeah.
It looked like Mac to me, to be honest with you. It feels like Mac. The App Store feels like the Mac App Store. I think it's Mac, 2.0. It might take 5 years, but I could feel the hate mail. We should move off of this
Okay.
because this is kind of off topic for
Yeah.
developer. I mean,
Okay.
I guess it's not, but
No, app stores. I think what I think what you just proved is app stores are very on topic for developers, and they're going to have to learn to love it, or at least bear it.
and this is one of those cases where I hope I'm dead wrong, and I'm hoping a month someone can write me an email saying, "See, you were totally wrong." You know, and you know, someone just asked. You know, Valve is also entering this game. They're now allowing Productivity Store on the Steam Store.
Yeah.
Productivity, yeah.
Yeah, you might be able to sell CodeJournal through the Steam store. Would you do that?
Well, I don't even know what the terms are. Would I? Yeah, sure. I'll sell it. You know, at this point, since direct sales didn't work out, I'm open to selling it wherever, assuming the terms are okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I mean, you know, we've talked about, and it's more of a last topic, the, you know, quote, Valve support for Linux. I think it's more about their set-top box and any realistic hope of a powerful Steam client on Linux that's going to have a lot of games is probably not very good, because if you look at the Mac client, it's not very good. It doesn't have a lot of games, right?
Yeah, I haven't checked out a lot on the Mac, but I have logged in from time to time, and I was pretty underwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. When it came to Mac, everybody was joyous.
But it's the same thing for Linux. People don't generally run Linux to play games.
Right.
I actually think, you know, Steam, somebody like you who wants to make a cross-platform application for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS X, and now Steam is going to say, okay, well, we're going to do a cross-platform store, and we have a really, really trusted brand name, and we already have a massive deployment base. That's the other thing, is they already have a huge deployment base.
That would be of interest to me. But again, I mean, that's speculation. That's way off topic.
All right, yep.
Yeah, I only know the process for getting a game into Steam, and it's very rigorous.
We'll have to just kind of wait and see. Maybe it'll be a future topic once they actually release some details and we start seeing some actual results.
Maybe it will. Should we talk about actual code so we kind of, you know, avoid the rage?
What about the topic of write once and sucking everywhere?
Yes, one of my favorite slogans.
Yes.
So I'm sure everybody knows what that echoes. The write once, run and everywhere, from making the sign of the cross in respect for the dead. Sun Microsystems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they have a different slogan now, but
I just watched a video from Sun Microsystems where they were demoing multi-touch and inertia scrolling in 1992. So that was interesting. Sun was really an interesting company. They really were on the verge of things, but now
things have changed.
They're all gone.
Godspeed, Sun.
So how do we end up on Sun?
Well, Sun makes Java.
Oh, yes, of course.
I'm not used to the past tense yet.
Right. Of course, Java.
Java was Java was the dream, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Write once, run everywhere. You could have your same goodness on Mac. You get it on Windows. You get it on Linux. You get it. How you could have it on Solaris.
They were demoing that touchscreen on a Java station. It was a Java-based desktop.
Oh.
And it was so slow. It was really slow watching them use it. It was kind of adorable. But yeah, Java was going to power everything.
Remember when Java was going to kill C++?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
How'd that go? So, you know, we kind of talked about Qt, right? So that's a cross-platform solution. Low-level C++ gives you a lot of power. Very nice. When you're developing an app, I've really been pushing this native functionality per platform thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked a lot about that.
And I have to say I'm wrong. I think I was wrong.
Crickets? What?
Because in today's market, not enough people are willing to pay. And for a certain class of apps, people are on more than one platform, especially for developer tools, I'm finding. So you then get into this cross-platform issue. There are definitely lots of cross-platform tools. Java's one of them. And yes, I can see the rage in the chat room.
Mm-hmm.
Java is not nearly as slow as it used to be. In fact, when did we talk about this? In the low-level episode, right? About the benchmarks of Java versus C++ versus optimized compilers.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I really don't want to go into that again because it's just, it's just fighting over numbers that really don't exist in production for either system.
It's all theory stuff, yeah.
It's all theory. It's not practical and silly.
That was, do you remember what episode number that was? People can go check it out if they want to hear.
Was it episode 4?
20,000 Leagues Under Java, right? That was episode 6.
20,000 Leagues Under Java, yep.
Episode 6 for that one. I'll put a link in the chat room.
It's, and I'm going to make an all statement, which can easily be proven wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. I would say all cross-platform tools are pretty much fast enough to do most desktop applications these days.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, it may not be as smooth in terms of scrolling or things like that, but it's acceptable.
And you're talking about a category of applications where that type of functionality, that cross-platform functionality, is very much a feature almost.
Right. I'm talking about business apps, right? I'm not talking about games.
You're talking about tools.
Tools. I'm basically, what most developers spend their lives writing. Right. So if you're working in someone's HR department, you're probably writing some kind of business tool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, graphics programs, things that deal with media. People are mentioning Photoshop in the chat. Yes.
Oh yeah, sure.
You need to go lower level.
Yeah,
for sure. The question is, if you want to go cross-platform, you have a couple options. You can go super low and do like a C, C++ type thing. Again, don't feel like debating the definition of the word low today. You could go really high and do something like Java, or don't do Mono. You could do Java. Or you could kind of go middle of the road with Qt, which is, lower than Java, and so far pretty fast for me. Question is, how do you then, and I don't have an answer here, I'm thinking out loud and I'm hoping to get feedback. How do you make an appropriate decision for a cross-platform toolkit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hate to say it, Java apps still feel like Java apps to me.
Mm-hmm.
I can still tell.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten better, even in terms of the UX.
Well, and the other thing, and am I speaking out of turn? But don't you still have to go get the Java run environment? I realize most people probably have that, but I just pointed out that there's not an operating system anymore that ships with it.
Oh, because Mac no longer does.
Yeah, and Windows hasn't for years, and Linux doesn't either.
Yeah, so it's a dependency, right?
Kind of a big one.
Well, that's the other thing about writing these cross-platform tools. Qt is a dependency. GDK is a dependency.
But you can bring those along with your installation.
Right. So you're saying, okay, yeah, they would have to have Java installed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I realize maybe for your audience, for a GitHub client, asking them to install Java is not really asking that much. But I'll give you, I don't have a machine that has it right now.
But you know what? You make a good point. And so does DeCresney. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. In the chat, installing Java is pretty scary, especially with all the Java security breaches.
Yeah, and on Windows, it's a beast because it's constantly asking to be updated. And on Linux, it's a pain in the butt because it doesn't always install in the right spot. And on Mac OS,
it never gets updated.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I've installed Java on all my relatives' computers.
Yeah.
I mean, uninstalled. I've taken it off because I didn't want to deal with any potential.
So and I don't mean to dog on Java because it does accomplish some really really good things too.
Yeah. I mean, so this is a case where Qt might be more appropriate because the app just kind of works, right?
Yeah,
Again, I don't know what the lower level implementation in Qt is. I'm assuming it does what Mac does and has kind of like a package or some kind of framework. Windows, maybe someone's mentioning DLLs. Oh, I hate those things.
Oh, the Man Unknown mentions that some OEMs likely ship the Java runtime, but again, it could be a very outdated Java runtime, and then what happens if a security update comes up and it potentially breaks compatibility?
Right. I mean, but let's not sandbag Java, right? So how about for the sake of argument, let's say Java exists everywhere,
and it has some nice advantages,
right?
But it has some disadvantages too.
Yeah. I mean, if it was Silverlight, I'd say okay, it's probably not there.
Yeah.
But
we could totally sandbag on Silverlight. I'm up for that.
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure Microsoft would join us in that conversation.
I know, actually, very true. Yeah, they're moving away from Windows 8.
The question you face is how do you pick a tool now, right? Because you're taking an enormous dependency, right? I mean, there's no bones about it. If you're writing one code base for more than one platform, there's some kind of abstraction layer to make it work on both platforms. That's astronomically large dependency. Java would be a huge dependency. I keep mentioning Mono. I think I'm just bitter. Would be a big dependency. Qt is a big dependency.
GTK.
No, yeah, right. Same thing. So, how do you pick? I would say I'll tell you the choice I made, and I'll try and justify it. I'm going with Qt for a few reasons. It uses C++, and there's a lot of open source C++. That's easy to use. C++ is faster than Java. Generally speaking, let's not get upset. And more importantly, I prefer it to Java.
No, that's sort of a key point if you're going to be able to making the app.
Mono's out of the race because
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a number of other tools. Okay, Adobe Air is not an acceptable solution. I thought I just saw that in the chat room.
Yeah, no. They're talking also about statically doing statically linking Qt and shipping it just so the user doesn't have to worry about the dependency at all. You've solved that problem for them.
Which is the right way to do a Qt app, I would assume.
But you have to pay for that. They're saying you have to buy a license to statically link.
Okay, so you'd have to figure out how much a license costs.
Yeah,
I mean, we're getting into implementation details here.
Well, but it might matter if you're trying to pick which one to go with, and that's a cost you have to.
Sure, it would matter. It's a cost. I mean, I would weigh that against the cost of people opening your app and being told they need to install Java
Definitely.
or download something.
Yeah, totally.
Unless the cost is astronomical, if it's just like $100, I'd probably just pay it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So, and Chris, I think you can tell in my voice, this is a hard argument for me to make because I don't really believe it.
Right.
I still think for the best apps possible, it should be one code base, one platform.
Right.
I'm a fundamentalist. I'm very conservative in that. But it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, the market doesn't agree.
Well, I think it does seem that way, and I think what it is it's the type of app. It's the utility factor of it.
Interesting, but if we look at games, I mean, almost every game today is aggressively cross-platform.
See, but they have the advantage of their entire UI is completely custom.
True.
And there's just no telling because it doesn't use any element from the operating system beyond the launcher, which is usually just a web embedded element. I would say, when I look at things like I'm recording right now in Logic, I would use Logic on Linux in a millisecond even if it looked exactly like it looks on a Mac. I don't care at all because it is just a tool for me. However, the text editor that I use, right, I care a lot more about that. If it doesn't look like it fits in, if it's not well integrated, if the open and closed dialog boxes don't match the operating system and allow the same functionality that I expect with every native dialog box, I won't use it.
Interesting. So for you, it's a by category decision. Right?
Exactly.
And that may be an angle of this I haven't thought of. See that? Editing the show as we go. Doing it live, people.
Nice. Because it really, for me, it depends on if I'm in work mode or if I'm in play sort of creative mode.
So I feel like we've avoided an elephant in the room, even though I have it in the notes.
Okay.
There's the great web hope.
Yeah. HTML5, that kind of thing.
HTML5 virtually runs everywhere.
And I have been tricked a few times. I have honestly been using it like on a mobile device. Yeah, an HTML5 app and not realized it was not native.
Right, and Grey Wolf's adding to the chat. Yeah, so I know that Grey Wolf, to do a game, you're depending on OpenGL.
Yeah.
I guess you could depend on DirectX, but why? Fair enough. I mean, it's still one code base, more or less, slight modifications. You should be good to go, depending on your engine. But back to the web thing.
Could you do something like CodeJournal in HTML5? You couldn't.
I guess you could.
Could you really? Like the file system stuff you need to do and all of that? Could you really do it?
Oddly enough, you could do it in Windows 8.
Huh.
Because they have JavaScript access to the local file system.
Make it a Metro app.
Make it a Metro app.
That would probably get featured. If you did a Metro... Have you thought about that? The fact that App Store is about to launch, and if you had something like that in there that was Metro-based, you'd probably get front-page placement because they're going to be so desperate for apps.
I plead the fifth.
Okay. As long as you're thinking.
I'm always thinking. I'm definitely thinking.
I mean, if I knew how, I'd throw a Jupyter Broadcasting app in there just because I know the first batch of applications.
So I've been playing a little bit with Windows 8. It got better.
Huh. You should do an episode on it at some point. You should. I'd be curious because really, I've been nothing but negative about it. So if you've got a few,
I'll do an episode. You disable YouTube comments, and we'll go from there. There's the compromise.
I'm sticking up for you YouTubers, but I don't know. I'm tempted.
Every week, I take another stab at you guys. All right, but back to the point. HTML5 has a lot of restrictions, right?
Yeah.
With the exception of Metro. I'm sorry, not Metro.
Modern or Windows 8 style UI.
I'm calling it Metro anyway. really hard to access the file system, and more importantly, C++ is going to be faster than JavaScript every day of the week. I don't care what you say. And so and Objective-C is just better. Because Objective-C does not have eval. But all kidding aside, I mean, really, is this the future we want for cross-platform apps? Everything to be a web app?
I don't think so.
Keep in mind that I write web apps, and it's a good part of my contracting work.
You know, I think it could be for a huge, huge category, and I think it could be for stuff that we never consider. Like, you know, but there's still just some stuff that... How can we? How
can this be a solution? And this is a solution. How can
I do this? How can I do production like this using HTML5? How do we do a podcast like this? Skype, recording all of it. How can you do that?
I guess you could. It would have to be some really optimized code.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is in my discussions with developer friends, business dev friends, anyone who offered a suggestion was, why don't you just do it in JavaScript and port it to Windows 8 and then do a web app version? I mean, I've considered a lot of things, and this is less about CodeJournal and more just going forward for first-party products.
What is that? What is your immediate take on that? Is that's crazy, or is that?
I think you're not going to get the performance. I mean, you're going to be fighting. You're going to be having to optimize so much that it's not going to be efficient.
Well, your benchmark would be probably the GitHub site itself, right?
Which is, how many developers making how many hundreds of thousands of dollars, as a group.
Always optimizing, and yeah. That's tough. That's a tough expectation to match.
I mean, don't forget, persistent storage in HTML5. Oh, and iMessage in HTML5, which I don't know how to turn off. God damn it! But
at least it notifies all your devices.
Isn't that helpful?
When Apple was on stage at some point, it was like Tim Cook or somebody said, "We've sent 1 billion or 6 billion notifications in the last year." I was like, "Yeah, it's because you guys spam everybody with those things."
Yeah, I really wish I could just say, "Stop."
Yeah.
But I mean, and again, I don't have an answer, right? I'm not the magical Dr. House here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have "thou shalt use Qt." Right now, Qt is a solution that I'm going with.
I'd be really interested to see where this goes, because I think Qt's got some serious potential. Or, I shouldn't... I'm almost talking like it's like this new up-and-coming thing, but it's like this huge, massively...
It's new. I mean, it is in a way new, right? It's going to be under new control, new leadership.
And maybe that's what it is. And it's also sort of like there's a new light being shined on it when you look at the next 5-year landscape.
Exactly. But it's... God, I mean, Chris, I don't know how to handle this. I'm sure this is a decision others have made, and I know plenty of others have just gone the Java route,
and
I know others have gone the Adobe Air route and are rewriting their apps because that was a bad decision. I just really don't like this.
Yeah. Well, I'll save it because you have a tool of the week. I'll save my comments for when we get to the tool of the week.
Sure.
So but I think that I think you've reached a point where you do kind of know where you want to go. It's just kind of it's kind of risky. Maybe you should retake that test. Maybe you're more of a conservative developer.
I guess I am. I mean, I'm definitely a more stubborn developer. Yeah. I want it my way, and
I really just want to. What you want is infinite time. That way, you could write it natively. You want to be like the TextMate 2 guy and be able to take 6 years to not really do anything.
Well, you know what it is. No, I don't want to be like the TextMate 2 guy. I almost considered killing a possible Windows port and even maybe killing the Linux port to just have one version that was highly integrated, and I'm not doing that.
Well, and I think the users have spoken. So, and
they've spoken. Cross-platform is the way. There will be a Linux port.
Maybe you're trying to do the round peg, square hole thing or whatever, square hole round, whatever.
Because I am. I'm trying to force my way of doing things on a market. And basically a world that's, they've moved on from that.
Exactly. And their expectations are different, and Qt or maybe Java would be the solution for their expectations. Because when you were talking about native, integration, I got all swept up because, that's how I like my stuff. But then when I think about something I actually use, like another perfect example is Wirecast. I'll use it on Windows or Mac. It looks like butt on Windows. It looks like a Mac app ported to Windows, but I don't care. So what?
You know what, though? I'm sure a lot of people use it And maybe that
they probably don't even know. They probably don't even realize.
Maybe that is what it is. I mean, maybe it's just
there's a portion who don't even notice. Yeah, and then people who do care care more about the functionality of being able to use it on whatever system they're working on that day.
Right. And if that system happens to be Solaris, well, I guess they're, tough cookies.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right, shoot. So let's plug CodeJournal.
Yeah, go check out CodeJournal, people. If you are on the Mac and you want a native, beautiful application designed just for your platform.
That's currently on sale, but won't be by the end of this week.
Get it before it's negative in the freedom dimension. Not that it's not kind of negative now, but I'm talking App Store dimension.
Oh, its eyes are glowing red. It's pretty negative.
It's watching you, not buying it. There you go. Get it while it's hot, folks, over at codejournalapp.com.
Sorry.
Okay. You want to talk about our tool of the week?
Yeah, I feel like I need some chai tea, though.
I know.
Losing it a bit today.
It's okay.
The tool of the week is, of course, Eclipse Now. It's Qt Creator.
There you go.
Why? Because I've been using it all week, and I've read a whole book on it, and I'm reading another book. It's about to finish.
Do you like it?
I feel like it is just the drag and drop IDE portion, or Visual Designer, is the best cross-platform Visual Designer I've seen yet.
That is exactly what I was expecting you to say, and this is why I said I wanted to save my comments till we got to the spot, because I think when you look at the fact that you have an option to statically link Qt, so that takes away all of the hassle from the end user installing anything like the Qt dependency. When you look at the fact that it's going to help you target every platform you want, and it has a good solid future ahead of it, and then when you combine it with Qt Creator, which is a very good tool to use, a very well-done tool, I should say, and one that's been improving year after year at a very steady rate of innovation. It's not sitting still. I think this is a combo for Qt that, it seems like a great solution for you.
Yeah, and you can tell using this tool, this is not something new. They've spent a long time fixing things.
We've followed it since it was announced on, we followed on the Linux Action Show, and we've talked about it a little bit. And I got to tell you, every time I come back and look at it, it's gotten better and better and better. This is a great solution.
I putting all my frustration aside, this is, at least for me, the best solution for going cross-platform.
It C++ and JavaScript code editor, integrated UI designer, project build management tools. It has pretty much, it's in almost every distro's repo, so it's super easy to get going on Linux. It's free to download. I've never installed it on any other platform other than Linux, but yeah, they have installers on their site for Windows and Mac OS X.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that it does JavaScript as well. We've only talked about the C++ aspects today because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
but it has a lot more functionality that I'm sure I'm going to learn about more. But it also has more than just, I could see this being a permanent part of my toolchain.
Qt Creator? Yeah.
Yeah, Qt in general, the whole system.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you're going to go cross-platform, why not go with something powerful?
Yeah.
That looks good cross-platform.
Yeah. And it's easy to get on the different platforms. I mean, that's what I was always impressed with. Is it's a very well done IDE that some of them not really so much anymore, but some of them used to take quite the process to get installed.
Right, and in my limited testing, it performs fairly well in terms of the output code, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the compiler is doing some voodoo, I'm sure, to make it cross-platform. But
yeah,
again, I'll be the first to admit I don't know how Qt works under the covers. Right now I'm moving quickly, learning the API, trying to get things done.
Right. You will shortly.
Oh, I have no choice.
Yeah.
Grey Wolf is mentioning in the chat that it has a full WebKit browser installed.
Oh, very cool.
As part of it. That's awesome. So I guess if you write your JavaScript, you can test it right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, I have to say, as an IDE, it's one of the most full-featured IDEs I've seen. And I can already say with a lot of authority, it's better than Xcode because Xcode crashes at least 4 times a day.
Jeez, that's frustrating. And it's free. It's
free.
Just go find the link in the show notes and go download it. Check it out. Why not? And it's got
download it.
They've got 64-bit and 32-bit versions available for Linux too. And 64-bit versions available for OS 10. I'm not sure about Windows, though.
I think Windows probably 64 too, right?
Doesn't say. It's just a single installer, but maybe.
It's interesting. I wonder how old your machine has to be 32.
Yeah. Good point. All right, well, you got a book pick that is very fitting.
Yeah, so this was the first Qt book I powered through, Foundations of Qt Development.
Now, not a cheap one. This one's $25 on the Kindle.
Not cheap. A press is never cheap.
Is it worth it?
I would say this is the crash course on the API and the GUI API.
Okay.
It's like the buttons, how they work.
It's got good reviews.
Yeah, kind of the pattern it uses when you string up your UI and just how to really get moving. It is not, this is how, it's not going to teach you how Qt works under the covers. But if you need to hurry up and get going, it's a great book. And I'm currently starting another that, if it's good, I'll probably feature next week.
How do you find the time, man? The only way I'm able to get any reading done is I use Audible. I don't know. Jeez.
Oh, I read 2 hours every night.
Do you? You kind of like have a routine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I should try to work that in. I'm usually working until I fall asleep and then I drag my butt into bed. Well, I got it. Maybe I'll try that. I got to try that maybe with the Pomodoro technique too, because that's still taking off.
Oh, we did have more feedback on the Pomodoro technique.
Yeah.
I didn't mention it this week because
we've talked about it a lot, but yeah. A lot of people mentioned we should let people know there are apps out there for Android. There's an official Pomodoro app now out there for Android, but there's also a bunch for iOS and Android that.
There's actually a new one featured on Mac too.
Oh, on the desktop?
Yeah, I actually bought it this morning. It's really pretty.
Really? What's it do?
Same thing, but it allows you to create tasks and subtasks, and automatically does the blocking for you.
Oh, that's cool. Now I want one. Gosh. All right. Well, so there you go, everyone. That's the whole show. Of course, we encourage you to join us live on Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific, and then, of course, the show's available for download shortly after that. Of course, it's also noon Eastern, so if you're on the East Coast, you can catch it at noon over at jblive.tv for the video or jblive.info for the audio. And be sure to check the show notes, get links to a lot of things we talked about, and send us your feedback to coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com. All right, Michael. Well, thanks for the great show. We'll see you next week.
All right.
And, of course, everyone, we'll see you right back here next week.